Hi, and thank you all for joining us today. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans.
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Welcome to Negotiating Happiness, the show that helps you find happiness, success, and balance in your work and life. I'm Adriana Fiestra, your host for this journey into entrepreneurship and personal growth. We're broadcasting live on 107.7 and 105.3 FM in New Orleans as part of the United Public Radio Network. We explore the latest strategies, insights, and stories from successful entrepreneurs and experts. From managing stress to building a thriving business, we've got you covered.
Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday night edition, Into the Night, with me, your host, Sean Kelly. You can find this show and my Sunday night show on UPRN Talk Radio 105.3 New Orleans, 107.7 Mississippi. And as you guys can tell, I got the cold or the flu, whatever, and it's beating me up. So my voice sounds a little rasped, so you gotta excuse me. Maybe it sounds better. I don't know. Hello, Heidi. Thank you. Cindy, good evening to you too. Holly, good to see you. The month of November, the awareness is it's called CRPS. What that is, it's a disease that 3 of my friends have. And what happens with them is that, hey, Stoney, good to see you. And with CRPS, then what happens is that they're in a lot of pain. And there's no medical thing to cure that. The only thing for now, until they find a cure for it, all they do is just live in pain. So if you guys could send a little prayer maybe to them, I would appreciate it. I'm sure they would appreciate it too. I got a great show tonight. Again, I want to thank my friend Mark Eddy. He'll be on with us tonight for getting me this gentleman. I got a little bit of a bio on my guest tonight. Wally has written a trilogy based on his 2016 sighting of a Tic Tac UFO. It caused him to reevaluate all that he had been taught. He really focused on UFOs in the Bible. And that's going to be interesting because I'm definitely going to bring that up. He can get into crop circles and medieval paintings that depict UFOs. And that's another interesting subject for me, because when I didn't really believe that UFOs could be back then. It just shows you how I wasn't really into it. But I got this one picture I saw. there's all these little like bright lights up in the sky, and I'm thinking those are stars or those are angels. I don't know what they were. But I come to find out through a bunch of people that, that UFOs were drawn or painted on different paintings. And my friend Wally here, he's going to be able to talk about it. And, and with the UFOs being in the Bible, I heard that many, many, many a times. And I'm sure I can ask him a question about it and let him hear what he has to say about it. Now, everybody out there in the chat room, thank you for coming on. If I don't get to you right away, I'm sorry, but we will. I will definitely try to get a hold of you, say hello or whatever you've written. Please ask questions tonight, man. I'm telling you, this guy's so full of knowledge. And so without further ado, my friend Mark, I'll put him on first. Hello, Mark. Good to see you, buddy.
Sure.
Thank you very much for getting Wally for me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Looking forward to the next hour.
Yes. And finally glad to meet him. And there he is. Hi, Wally. How are you, buddy?
Hello, Sean. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here, man. I know it was a little bit on short notice, but I was like kind of happy about it. And Mark has told so much good things about you that I'm like, wow. And what's really cool is that you're located like down south from me, maybe a couple hours, which is not bad at all too, So your trilogy that you wrote back in 2016, can you share the story that caught your mind in order to write the trilogy?
Sure. I was a mailman at the time. Oh, I see Mark's holding up my books.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, Crossing the Crevice, the red one that he's holding up is actually in second edition, and it's blue now.
Okay.
I was a mailman at the time, and it was September. The same month I was getting ready to retire, actually. I actually live, Sean, in Bedford, Virginia right now, which is in between Roanoke and Lynchburg, although I am from southern West Virginia.
Okay.
I had just made a delivery to this lady, and I was walking back to my vehicle. And I was out in her front yard, and something or somebody had me stop and look up. And when I did, over my head was what we now call the white Tic Tac variety of craft. It allowed me to see it for about 3 seconds or so, and then it wasn't there anymore. It either took off so fast I couldn't see it, it perhaps cloaked and was still there, or maybe it went into another dimension. I'm not sure, but it totally quiet. It was a clear day. The craft had no windows, no wings, no nacelles, nothing. It just literally looked like the little white mint, the Tic Tac. And I'm guessing 50 feet by 30 feet. I'm pretty sure that's close to the ratio anyway. I'm not real sure how high it was over my head. I've been debating that since 2016, but in any case, it let me see it. And at the time, I was a very conservative Christian teaching in Sunday school in the then the United Methodist Church. It's not so much united now, but I would consider myself a very conservative Christian, and I live in a conservative area. And it has ended up changing my reality and my belief structure, literally, almost completely.
Okay.
I have come to realize that crafts are throughout the Bible. In my last book, The Nucleus, I give 30 direct and indirect references for crafts in the Bible, starting in Genesis, going through Revelation. Of course, none of this is taught in school, in Sunday school or behind the pulpit. A lot of it's not covered in commentaries. We used to have a joke. We had the MacArthur Bible, and anytime there was a question on something that didn't fit the agenda, you would go to look for the comment or a description. Of course, it wasn't there, which is typical. I mean, everything fits into a narrow agenda. That's what I've come to realize now, and I've stepped outside that box. I give credit to Reverend Michael Carter. I got to meet with him, and we had a sit down, and he convinced me I was on a path. And for the next 2 years, I studied and went back and reevaluated everything I was taught, except I did not use commentaries. I read it and let it speak to me directly.
Okay.
As a result, I wrote my book, Crossing the Crevice. It came out in 2020. And in that book, I guess I just laid the groundwork from why the earth is a lot older than 6,000 years. I mean, I was taught the earth is 6,000 years old. Okay. If you don't believe that, then you don't believe the Bible. I was taught UFOs, all UFOs are from the devil, that they're deceptions. All that is incorrect. And I explain why in Crossing the Crevice. I get into crop circles a little bit. I get into how big space is. I get into a little bit of disclosure and secret government. And I've studied this stuff, and, we're not being told the truth. We're not being told the truth by our government, and we're not being told the truth by, I dare say it, but mainstream Christianity. We're not being told the truth.
Why is that? Why is that, Wally?
Well,
with Christianity.
Well, the Hebrew word for spirit is ruach, and you can see the word spirit several times in the Bible, including Genesis and including in Revelation. I use Revelation 4 as an example. When John is called up, he sees this door open in heaven. You have to realize that anytime you see heaven, that's anything up in the sky. He sees this door open and it's called up, come up here. And he goes up into the Spirit. How do you go into the Spirit? This is a case where that is a craft, and he is flowing around the heavens, and we get the description of what he's seen. You have to understand that this God, what we call God, or what most people call God in the Old Testament, flew in a craft. Even Jesus flew in a craft. And this craft hovered over the waters in Genesis. And this craft is mentioned in Zechariah. It's mentioned in multiple places. You can even read in Samuel that the temple is where God lives, and the temple blew smoke out of its nostrils. I mean, it's a pure description of a craft taking off. And okay. all this is what comes to me from me doing study for myself. And you're not going to get this in Sunday school or from behind the pulpit, but it's in the Bible. I mean, the Old Testament God flew. That is without a doubt. And everybody saw the Old Testament God. We know of 78 people for sure that saw the Old Testament God. And there may have been hundreds more than that if you interpret some of the Psalms, in that fashion. But in the New Testament, no one has seen God, and no one has ever seen God or can see God, because God is spirit. So now our question is why so many Christians, God to them is the God of the Bible, which includes Yahweh or Jehovah from the Old Testament. I think it was just misinterpreted as being a god. His powers and his shock and awe treatment, he wanted respect, and
Right.
he went about it in his way because he was jealous. So, I even have an issue with that God even being the main God. If you go to Deuteronomy chapter 32, 8 and 9, Yahweh or Jehovah was not even the most high God. So if you wanted a God from the Old Testament, would you not want the most high God? And the most high God is El, E-L. And you can look in the Oxford Bible Dictionary or concordance, and it's not even in there, but it's in the Bible. So a lot of this stuff has to be molded to fit within the narrow agenda, and it's been that way for 2,000 years. So you really have to step outside the gates. And in doing that, I've done that, and I've experienced many, many truths that I would not have experienced otherwise.
Awesome. Hey, my friend River wrote, I have seen something like that twice in my life. Both times a very long gold cigar-shaped crap, one time with my father in Sterling Forest, New York, at the age of 10, and then at the age of 39 in winter in Goshen, New York. I have also had dreams and visions since I was 7 years old, and I'm highly empathic and clairsentient and more. I agree, we definitely have not been told the truth, not by the government or any religion.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing that.
He's dead on.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Mark, do you have any? Would you like to put your 2 cents in?
Okay. Okay. Wally, throughout your trilogy, talk about you don't want to offend people by having them, question the traditional teachings, but like you've already just noted, there are the Elohim, the multiple gods. So how do we have a monotheistic religion?
How do we have it? Is because that's what we've been taught from the time the canonists put everything together. Back then, to be male was everything, especially if you were Jewish. The firstborn male was everything. If you were a female back then, you were technically a second-class citizen. Your job was to mend, cook, sew, clean house, and perhaps procure some food. The male was everything. But how we got to this point, that's a very good question. I believe it really had to do with developing a new religion, a new what we now call Christianity, and to give power to the church. And believe me, the church has had power, immense power through the ages. Even when they wrote the initial Latin Vulgate, it was in Latin. Very few people spoke Latin. The commoners, no one had it. No one could even afford to buy the book. So any truth that came down from about 400 AD up to roughly 1600 AD, any truth that was exposed fell into that narrow agenda. So that was the truth for most people. If there's been any breaking away, it's been in the last 400 years where we've started to expand our knowledge a little bit.
Interesting. Michael Anthony says blinders.
Yep.
Question. Ever since doing this for the last 5 years in UFOs and working with Michael and working with a bunch of other people, what is your theory? What is your on the Anunnaki? Do you think they were sent down to form the Bible? Did they come in spaceships? Did they have? There's a lot of stuff out there about the Anunnaki that I just can't seem to grasp because there's so much. Could you
Well,
please explain?
I'll do my best. If you look behind me, you'll see every book that Zachariah Sitchin has written. So
Wow.
I'm kind of a firm believer that Hashem is indeed a rocket ship. Were they sent here? I'm not sure they were sent here. They may have been explorers, but if they were sent here, they were sent here on a direct mission, and that may have indeed been gold. Are they mentioned in the Bible? Possibly, especially in and around Iraq and Iran. But definitely, I believe in them. I believe in that they had powers that we did not understand, and they may have even tweaked our DNA to the point where you could intertwine that with the Garden of Eden. I mean, your mind could go in several ways, but it's very possible that we are refined because of them.
Now, do you think River says, "Oh, Sean, I am sending you healing prayers and energy. Sorry you're not feeling well, but it's a great show, great topic too. Thank you, River." And Heidi says hello to my brother. My brother says hi there, my favorite brother, Sean. He says, "You're looking like Santa Claus." Yeah, it's my Santa Claus look. Yeah, it's my Santa Claus look, brother. But it's really, really interesting that you talk about UFOs and aliens in the Bible, because from just listening to you tonight, you're like the very first one that has really opened up to it. You know what I mean? When you wrote the book and you started to see outside of the box, did you attempt to tell whatever religious denomination that you were in about it? And did they shun you, or what did they do?
I did tell my Sunday school class about it. I was teaching Sunday school at the time, but it was an adult class, and they took it fairly well. We had already been discussing the Psalms, and I had already made the case that any of the interesting Psalms that didn't fit in the box were not in our Sunday school booklet, which is par for the course. But they took it fairly well. And what happened was our organist saw a craft 3 weeks after I did in the same town here in Bedford, and that was made known. So from I guess our congregation, or my former congregation, I no longer go to that church, but probably had 40 people maybe total, maybe 50 on a good Sunday. They were pretty much open to it, actually. So
That's
I give them
interesting.
kudos for that.
That's really, really interesting. Cindy Simpson was wondering your input on the RH blood mines.
I don't know a whole lot about that. I know that in Spain, there's a special group of people, but I really haven't gotten into that. I'm sorry.
Cindy, if you go and watch Joe Montaldo's show tomorrow night, UFO Undercover, just ask him that question and he'll tell you all about it. He knows more about the RH bloodlines. He's the man to go see about that. Mark, do you have anything?
Yeah. I saw it was a rerun of an episode of Ancient Aliens, and we're talking about like a protective bubble around a craft. It may have been for some kind of means of accelerating, and in your crossing the crevasse, you have it's similar kind of bubble around the craft, and this painting is in Serbia, Kosovo. It was painted about 1350. So they're foreshadowing ancient aliens by about 700 years, but the concept seems like it's been around for a long time. Do you have any insights into what some of these artists were depicting? And you get the famous one, of the craft in the above the
Background.
church, and it's shooting like some kind of laser beam through the wall into the side of Mary's. Am I doing into the side of her head? So, what are these artists depicting? It seems consistent over time.
Well, we have not been alone, and we've never been alone. Of course, that's what's depicted in a lot of those pictures and paintings. But if you're referring to the narrow beam going into Mary's head, I could construe that as being the Holy Spirit, or I could construe that as a beam of light, which is portrayed several times in the Bible. For an example, the night that Christ was born, you had the shepherds out in the field of Ruth, by the way. I've actually been right there where that happened. A craft was over their head and sent down a beam of light, and the beam shone around them, just like a spotlight. And then a voice came from the craft. Same thing happened to Paul on the road to Damascus. A beam of light came down, and it was Jesus that talked to him. But these crafts have these beams. The same thing that happened to Travis Walton. Apparently, this beam has the ability to pull something up into the craft. So it may be anti-gravity inside that beam, and it may also be some way to communicate inside that beam. And that's really about all I could say on that. But it's interesting, very interesting. You can't make this stuff up. If you go back and look at all the pictographs and the geographs and the paintings, and I mean, this was a very, very important event for these people to take their time to put this down for future generations to see. And it just goes to show you that we have never been alone. I mean, these reportings of crafts go all the way back before Jesus.
Wow. Heidi says, years ago when I first heard of the Anunnaki, I had watched someone, maybe an ancient alien, LOL. They were talking about correlation between the Bible and the ETs. Billy Carlson has made reference to. My friend Michael Anthony says, I have 100 questions, but many are being answered tonight. I'm glad you're enjoying the show, Mike. Hello, Heidi. Hey, Kason, good to see you. Excuse me. So
I will say that if you look in Zechariah chapter 6, you can see where these crafts coming from the sky are actually called spirits. And
Zechariah?
Yes. So using that, when you see the word spirit in the Bible, just don't think that it's something invisible being or something. You have to understand what you're reading and see if a craft fits for the word spirit. The same thing like Revelation chapter 4, when you go up into the spirit and you saw the door open in heaven, and then you are flowing around the heavens. Or in Genesis, when the spirit hovered above the water. You have to see if the word spirit is actually what we typically construe a spirit to be, or is it actually a craft?
Interesting. Heidi says the wall carvings symbolizing crafts and she said the Bible uses symbolism.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
yes, I did notice that. But since you saw that ET and you wrote that trilogy, have you seen any more Tic Tacs or something like that?
I have not. I have not. That was a one-time event for me so far.
Okay, Michael Anthony, he says, you know me well. So Eric Von Danigan, thoughts on Chariots? That's for you, Wally.
I'm sorry, is that a question?
Yeah,
I'm a believer in Eric Van Daniken, but I did not catch the question.
he just wants to know your thoughts on the Chariots.
Oh, sure. Chariots of Fire mentioned multiple times, but the most, you consider Elijah and you consider Elisha when you see these crafts in the sky. Chariots of fire are nothing but crafts. Elijah was picked up in a craft. Not only was he picked up in a craft, but people knew days in advance that he was going to be picked up in a craft. There were prophecy schools in those days, and they knew that that was going to happen. So a chariot, if it was of fire, would burn up. So it makes no sense. A chariot of fire, a cherub in some cases, a spirit in some cases, wings of the eagle in some cases, all conscrew crafts in many places in the Bible.
River Rose says, from what I understand in some of my visions, these different crafts actually relate to the different people. Tribes and the crafts are only seen by those they want to see them, as if monitoring or watching over different people. That there is a significant relation to this. So my friend Rivers, he said that. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for that question about the chariots, Michael. But
I've wondered that myself. Did they really want me to see it? Did they know that I was going to write books? Did they know it was going to be life changing for me? Uh, Maybe so.
well, I'll tell you my story, like I told you before the show, and some people on here know about mine. So I've been doing podcasting for over 5 years now, and being a paranormal investigator, I saw a ghost, in spirit. I saw them full body, the whole 9 yards. So I know they exist. But when we got into UFOs, ETs, stuff like that, we had a lot of guests on. And, I believed in what they say, but I was like a little bit on the fence with it. And that's how I was. But me, I respect everybody, all my guests and what they do. But I always tell people on my show, I'm like, the only way I know that they exist is that I have to see a UFO and an alien, shake its hand, an alien's hand, in my backyard with a UFO. But I tell you what, I was going to work that one morning. It was 4:30 in the morning, and I just happened to glance over a house. Dude, this thing was like the USS Starship Enterprise, man. That's how it looked, like really big circle with all kinds of lights and stuff like that. My spidey senses kicked in, got a little chill in my spidey senses. And so I figure, hell, I got to go to the other house, go to the other street, and I'll see it better. Well, I went to the other street, not even 50 feet away, and the damn thing was gone, just like that. It was gone. It was like no noise, no nothing,
No noise.
no noise, and it just like blew me away. My friend Kaysen says, "Do you believe the doggone people were really visited by ETs? What is your opinion about it?"
I have a one-word answer. Yes.
Good man.
I know about the doggone tribe and Sirius, or they call it Sirius A and B, but How would they have known otherwise? I mean, that's the question. So, yes, they were visited. Lots of people have been visited in the past.
My
So,
They all
question,
came from the sky.
go ahead. Go
you
ahead,
know,
Mark.
so when you're talking about the Dogon tribe or uh, the Holy Land, Samaria, uh, does your research indicate that there's a spiritual evolution after their the people's encounters with ETs or sightings? How did their depictions of ETs in the holy books help to shape what we believe in, like the heavens today?
I will answer it this way. A lot of the books that contain spirituality, things of heaven, things we don't understand, are considered Gnostic and were weeded out. Now they're still out there to read, but it's not a part of, mainstream Christianity. If you dare to read some of those books, you will see that, for example, it really affected the 12 disciples. They got upper level teaching from Yeshua, where the masses got the lower level teaching, and it literally changed a lot of their being, so to speak. To virtually every one of them was willing to die for Christ, and did so, except for John. Was murdered. Everyone was murdered, and even Peter was upside down. But you can see that it really changed them, and they yearned for that knowledge, and all of that was weeded out by the canonist.
Unbelievable.
So if you're, listening to this program, I highly recommend everyone to read several books, and I have them in the appendix of my books. For example, the Book of Enoch. Everyone should know that. It almost made it into the canon. A bunch of the church fathers wanted it in the canon, but at the last minute, because it referred to a Messiah, the Jewish constituent no longer, wanted it in there. I would love for everybody to read what's called the Pistis Sophia and the Assumption of Moses, as well as the Gospel of Thomas. Those would be four I would start at, and you will get a different flavor of what Jesus was teaching as compared to what made it into the Bible.
I tell you what, Thomas is the best book ever written for me. That one, Thomas. I just live by what Thomas, and what I liked about Thomas was that you don't have to go to a church to pray with a lot of people.
Of course not.
You can go wherever you want to go, and God will listen. And that really helped me in my recovery. And so did the Book of Job. That helped me in my recovery too. But let's get to crop circles. We got about 13 more minutes, so let's get to crop circles.
Well, I owe Lucy Pringle a debt of gratitude. In crossing the crevice, I got all my high definition photos from her, and she is in England. And I'm going to show this one to you, if I can get it to, there it is. The one I'm showing you is the granddaddy of them all.
Wow.
It's full of little small intricate circles. There's no walking in between, because if you walk in these crops, you leave lines. Would you believe there's 409 circles, over 700 feet in diameter, and it was made overnight. Are you
Holy
going
shit.
to tell me that a couple gentlemen with snowshoes went out there and made that in the middle of the night, and there it is for everyone to see the following morning? No, it doesn't work that way.
That-
It doesn't look like anyone was walked through the field. It's just
no.
they
No,
just
these only take a couple. A real crop circle only takes a couple seconds to make, and we have proof now that it changes the stalks of whatever is growing there. For example, if a crop circle, which has happened, appears in a crop of canola, a canola has a very, very delicate flower. If a person went out there and tried to make a crop circle, it would be total mush. That's what would happen. But in a real crop circle, that flower head is still viable. The stalk is bent in a way that the flower is not bothered. So there are ways you can find a true crop circle versus a man-made crop circle. Another point I'll make is a lot of these crop circles appear in England and the Wiltshire area. The population density of England is like 8 times what it is in the United States. And to make one of these crop circles at night, when you pull your vehicle up and you're out there with your pre-planned, computerized diagram trying to make something, don't you think somebody would see you with your miner's lights?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't work this way. There have been pilots that have flown 30 minutes one way and come back the same way, and there's a crop circle when it wasn't there when he flew out. So these things are legitimate. They have been, I guess, removed from the mainstream because of a couple gentlemen, Dan and Dave, who admitted that they made them, and that took it off the front burner. But for the real people, the real doctors that are still studying it at universities in Oregon and Finland, for example, they are legitimate, and they're still an enigma. Where are they coming from? What do they mean? And why do they keep showing up?
Great.
We don't have real answers for that yet.
I got chills. Dude. I got chills on that one. Michael Anthony said, but keep in mind, most books were written after their deaths. River Rose says it's the same with the teachings on alchemy, which has been outlawed since King Henry I. I think the fifth and the Pope way back in the 1300s. Alchemy was not just about gold, it was also spiritual and healing of the entire body. The powers that be banned or outlaw everything we should know. Agatha, hey Agatha, good to see you, hon. I was in 3 real crop circles in Germany at Ammer Lake. We have every year one around July. It's amazing. Even the dowsers move with the pattern of the dowsers move with the patterns of the crops. Agatha says that's close to Munich. River Rose says, I have always felt that they are legit. If they weren't, they would have photos of the hoax itself. And Kason has a question. That's my friend. What's your opinion about the DNA triple helix crop circle? Is it a message for humans?
I don't know. That's my honest answer. I mean, it could be that all of these crop circles are message for humans. but the triple DNA, I'm somewhat familiar with that one. I don't know if that's referring to perhaps an alien, or is that for our future? The jury's out on that.
You want to get the last question then, Mark? We got about 5 minutes, dude.
That might not be enough time for Wally's response, but
We're going to have you back on, Wally.
With your trips to the Holy Land and Egypt, how did you encompass all of your sighting, your new outlook on life? How have you changed in the last 8 years?
How long do I have to answer?
You
probably
got
4 minutes now.
3 minutes, yes.
How have I changed in the last 8 years?
Well, you know what, Wally? We can always have you back again. That's
I would
not a
appreciate
problem.
that would be great. But
Yes.
I've stepped outside the gates of the established Christianity, of Western Christianity. I've learned so many things. Reincarnation is real. It exists. It was even taught in the early church. Surprise. Origen was one of the greatest minds the early church ever had. I put a few of his undoctored comments in the nucleus. It was okay to talk about in the early church for the first several hundred years, and it got weeded out by the time it got to Jerome, and then it got weeded out later to where now everybody believes you just have this one life to live, and you better get it right. You better become saved. You better be born again. You better accept Jesus as your Savior, and then you'll be walking on streets of gold the rest of your life with God wiping the tears from your eyes. Now that's where I used to be. I am not there anymore. God has become, in a way, smaller for me based on John 14. I know Jesus did not lie, and I find Jesus's words truthful and universal even to this day. So I am a follower of Jesus. I will shout his name out, from the housetops. But Jesus specifically said that anyone, will do works and miracles greater than he did. Now, how do you interpret that? Was he speaking just to his disciples, even though he used the word anyone, or was he speaking to everybody who followed his teachings? And I believe he's speaking to anyone and everyone. With that in mind, I've learned to meditate in addition to prayer. We can get into that next time.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, because I am a son of God, I am a little God. I know that's New Age, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but
you didn't offend me, man. That's one thing.
Everything is God to me now. Everything.
Okay.
You God. Mark is God. Everybody's God. Everybody's on their own path. Everybody's part of this universal collectiveness that we call God. And we're just lower in consciousness than Jesus. I mean, what was the point that Jesus came here? If he just came here to be half human and half spiritual in nature, you have to understand why he came. I think to make it real and to understand his teachings was to bring us up to show us that we can be a part in everything that he did. And even Peter took the first step out of the boat and walked on water before he panicked. So we have these latent powers within us. They're just not being taught or tapped.
This is interesting. We seriously need to get you back on again, my friend. We have ran out of time, unfortunately.
Sounds like
But
the chat room had a lot of questions and they
yeah,
were responding very well.
yeah, it was great, man. How can people find you, Wally?
I'm on the web. I have a website, otherflocks.net.
Mm-hmm.
Will take you there, and my books are on Amazon and Kindle. My webmaster just put my latest book on my website. It's not pertaining to the topics we discussed tonight. I wrote one final book about my father, and I believe he put it on my website today. So if you'll just scroll down a little bit below that, you'll see my other 3 books.
Thank you again, Wally. We're gonna have you on hopefully before Christmas, dude. If that's all right
I'm
with
looking
you.
forward to it. Sure.
Honest to gosh, you're man. You opened my eyes, and you have opened up a lot of other people's minds, and you have answered a lot of questions to some people that they had questions for. I am totally grateful that you're on my show, Mark. I'm grateful for you.
Appreciate it.
That for finding Wally. It touches my heart. It touches my heart.
That's why
Children, if
Joe
you,
pays me the big bucks.
yeah, children, if you can, please go to your parents, give them a hug, and tell them that you love them. And parents, please go to your children, give them a hug, and tell them that you love them. And if you don't have no parents, and if you have no children, find somebody and give them a hug and tell them that you love them. Because those 3 words, I love you, go a long way. And on
Yes, they
that
do.
note, good night, and I will see you Sunday.
Peace.